All right, guys, welcome to another episode of Love Tribe. But this time I'm on solo again. So it's going to be a little bit different because I'm going to introduce you to a topic that has more to do with a testimony than it has to do with um, new information or enlightenment. What does that mean? I'm going to share a testimony of mine um, that over time, the few people I've come across that I've actually have shared it with has changed them, has helped them realize things in their life that sometimes they've been hard on. Because life has a way of making you be hard on yourself, you know? Um, we don't tend to see our life with value sometimes in terms of us as people. Many a times we attribute the value that we have based on external factors. And if it's not based on external factors in terms of like how much money we make, what position we have, what title do we hold, what kind of house do we have, what kind of car do we drive, what kind of clothes or material things do we clad ourselves with, we the external factors that we look for in how other people treat us or someone closest to us, how their behavior is with us. But we need to understand the following, that behaviors are patterns that each person carries with them. So, in knowing that, we understand then that none of us are responsible for each other's pattern 100%. And I say 100% because in interacting with one another, we do at some point become responsible for how we make others feel. Yes, but we're not 100% accountable for how other people behave with us or towards us. So their response, their behavior patterns with us don't have anything to do with an indication of our worth, our worth in their life or our worth in our own life, you know? So we need to know that. Um, Something that happened to me a while back, and I'll be real authentic, and it's part of the reason why the past two episodes, even though I was having sound system issues, I posted them anyway. And I hope you guys had a hoot or laugh. If you didn't laugh with what I was saying or at what I was sharing, at least laugh at me. Because I'm okay with that too. Um, so I'm going to share a story that is a testimony. It's really what happened, and I'm going to be raw with what took place. Uh, Years back, this was around 2000 and yeah, 2016 is when it took place. I had been already battling something that was really difficult on another part of my life, which I'll say for a different day, but I'll just summarize it in saying I was battling a legal situation related to being a parent that put me in a position that it was the hardest position of my life because I was between a rock and a hard place. I was between a place of wanting to just make sure that my kid was safe and at the same time making sure that they had a relationship with the other side of their life. Uh, and it was really difficult because no matter how I navigated that, I was seen as the worst. I was seen as the villain, which was okay because my main goal was to make sure my kid was fine. What took place as a result of that was just a feeling within myself of desperation. I was desperate. I was desperate for help. I was desperate for being understood. I was, I began to feel extremely alone, even though I had family with me. And I have a very loving family. But I also had to show a brave face in that scenario, which resulted in me basically feeling like I was navigating that alone, you know? And I'm pretty sure a lot of people can relate to that with their own story, even though it might be different from mine. So I felt like I was navigating something alone, having to show a brave face, go to work as if nothing was wrong, and many people did not know for years. It became almost like a 12 to 13-year ordeal by the time I added all the time that it took to have this resolved. And as a single parent and working, you know, sometimes three jobs at a time, I just didn't see an ending to it. I didn't see a way out of it. I didn't see how to fix it. I didn't know how to repair it. Um, and I felt really bad. I made decisions and choices along the way of that trajectory that I promised myself I would never make when I was much younger, and I devoted my spirit to God. I devoted my belief system to making, having a good relationship with him, making him proud. That was important to me, just the way that I was raised. Um, so I felt like my worth was gone. I felt like the system that I thought that I could trust for help was not there, was not really assisting, um, was not really assisting me. And no matter how I navigated that situation, I was either seen as as if I was negligent, or I was bitter, or when I was neither of those. I really just wanted my kid to be okay, right? Okay. Cut to a 12-year ordeal that resulted in um, a lot of emotional pain. Because obviously, I don't know a person that can go through something for such a long time and be fine with it. If it's very negative, eventually, psychologically, it's going to have an effect on you. And it did. And what it ended up doing is it ended up making me feel unworthy of a good outcome, unworthy of a peaceful life, unworthy of love, unworthy of value, unworthy of anything good happening. I just began to feel extremely unworthy, unhappy with life. Um, and I had made a decision after 12 years and financial struggles that just did not seem to disappear as a result of being overworked, and being overwhelmed. And uh, March 17th, 2016, I had I was driving to work, and I don't forget this day because this day was like a second birthday. It changed my life completely. It was St. Patrick's Day, which is funny, um, in retrospect, because it's the day of people go out and drink. Meanwhile, St. Patrick had nothing to do with drinks. He had everything to do with making a people discover how to connect spiritually with God, and relying more on their faith than their physical means for power. But okay, so March 17th, 2016, I went to work. I remember feeling that, like, when I think back to that day, I remember feeling that my spirit was, if it were a candle, it was a candle that was, the wax was about to turn the flame out, was about to, make the flame go out. I felt numb to emotions. I didn't have a desire to be here. I didn't see why life was joyful. And I had a lot of reasons to be joyful. I had a beautiful child, great job, whatever. There was a lot of things to be joyful. Now I see that, but at that moment, in battling a struggle that was very, very emotionally draining for 12 years, and other scenarios that took place as a result of me making decisions with an emotional state that was difficult, um, I just no longer wanted to stay here. I basically had a feeling of, I don't even, I don't, I can't carry this on. I can't take it anymore. And so I had a plan in mind. I was going to drive home. And I was, the idea of overdosing on something was there, and I don't condone that, but the idea of doing something to myself to end my life was there. I remember leaving work that day. I remember picking up my daughter from school. I remember getting a McDonald's snack because she did good on something in school that day, and I would reward her by getting an ice cream and French fries. That's like one of her favorite snacks, or it was at the time. And I remember getting it and being in the car and coming to a red light, an intersection, a huge intersection. And I just remember savoring that moment and just thinking to myself, uh, like that's it. Like when I get home, uh, this is for me. This is it. You know. Uh, I think when you are emotionally drained and your spirit has been uh almost wiped out in a way, you don't see those questions of, well, what about this and what about that and what you basically just see the fact that you just can't handle it anymore. Okay. Many people have these thoughts. I'm sharing this testimony not to highlight or to glamorize the thought of not wanting to go on. I am sharing this testimony to basically help everyone acknowledge with themselves and with people around them. Almost every single person either has had this thought or will have this thought at some point in their life, and it does not mean there's something wrong with you. It just means that you need help, you know? Um okay, so I was driving, we were at the red light at the intersection, and I remember asking my daughter for a french fry, and she very smartly, she made sure to give me a fry from the package, not let me take one myself because I would probably take a little handful. I took the fry. I had a green light, and I remember I started driving the car in the intersection to make my left turn with my green light. And I always wait a couple seconds when I'm on an intersection before I just take off because I always worry that there's traffic that may not recognize that they have a red light. And as I'm making the turn, slowly, I realize from the left corner of my peripheral vision, there's just some mass like coming at me at like bullet speed. Like that's what it looked like from a distance. And as I turn my head and slowly calculate whatever it is going to hit me, I lift my foot off the accelerator a bit because I'm thinking my daughter is in the back seat. I didn't want her to get injured. And I looked to the left, and it was no sooner that I just looked to the left and I didn't even get to blink. An SUV crashed into me, a Dodge crashed into my Toyota Camry and T-boned my car, crushing the front part of itself and my door onto my left leg. I heard a huge crack in my ears, like a surround sound, and I just felt myself lay my head onto the glass, and I was gone. I remember immediately blinking my eyes open and and thinking, "Oh my God, everything's fine." I'm moving my eyes. My daughter is screaming for me. Um, she's screaming for me in a desperation, in a way where tears are coming out of her eyes. I don't hear anything. I see that she's screaming for me, but I don't hear. It's pure silence. It's peaceful. I see her coming at me, and I'm thinking to myself, does she not see that I'm moving? I could see her. I look to the left. I see the car on me, and I'm like, oh, I got to get up from here. I can't stay seated where I'm at. This car is on top, is got no space. So I literally stand up from the driver's seat and I walk forward, and now I'm on the asphalt. I'm in the middle of the intersection. I look back at my car and I kind of crouch down, and I see myself sitting in the car while I myself outside of the car looking at this. I notice my daughter coming from the back seat towards the driver's side, touching my face. She's slapping my face. It- Um, I can only see that it looks like she's screaming for me, but I don't necessarily hear it. Everything's peaceful. Um, and then I crouched down a little bit more, and I kind of recognized that the person in the car. I was like, "Oh no, that's me. That's me. Oh my God, I'm dead." Like it like don't it processed. It took that long to process. And as I'm processing this, I'm like, I gotta get back in there. Like I gotta get back into that body. Like I can't. No, 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 no. Um, all that mattered was I wanted to get back into the physical body that was in front of me. As I'm thinking that and I'm trying to almost like swim into the car, I feel a huge, like it felt like a hand basically grabbed my entire body. Even though I didn't have a physical body, I didn't have a physical design anymore. I was just, energy. I don't even know how to explain it. I felt something grab me and pull me up. And as I'm pulled up, I am pulled up to what it looked like when a spaceship goes into outer space. You see the different layers. Like I was just pulled up and I was taken to this place that was extremely crystalline. It was like being inside of a diamond, but it was spherical. But it was like being inside of a diamond where every part of the sphere, if it had it felt like it also had facets. I don't even know how to explain it. There was connecting points to it, and it just glistened. It glowed. It glistened, and I was in this place. It was extremely peaceful, and all of a sudden, I just have this embodiment of extreme love. I have this feeling that I was being held as if you hold a baby, you know? And it was the most amazing experience to have because it was like I finally got the feeling of unconditional love. At that moment, I got the feeling of unconditional love and it was it was breathtaking. I didn't want to leave. Now, as I'm having this experience of unconditional love, I am starting to process that I'm in a different dimension and that whatever is there with me holding me, th- it's whatever created everything. And to me, that was God, you know? I'm starting to have a sense of this is it, you know? I never made it home to fulfill my plan, but this is it. It was my day. Now, as I'm thinking this, immediately it's almost like telepathy, but I could hear the voice. I could hear a voice. I heard immediately as a feedback from those thoughts I was having. That's not how we do things. But the voice was so deep. It was like a fatherly voice. It was a voice that they mean business, but you also know that they got you. You also know that they protect you. You also know that they unconditionally love you. You feel safe. It is just like, that's not how we do this. I try to imitate the voice to myself sometimes because it was a very beautiful experience and it really did change my entire outlook on life. Okay, so I heard that's not how we do this. And with that moment, I started to basically reflect all of my thoughts and feelings in relationship to my reasons behind my behaviors, my reason behind what I wanted to do, you know? Why why was I contemplating? Why did I have the plan that I have? I start kind of like having this dialogue with this being, which for me it was God, and it's like we're having this conversation but in a telepathic kind of way because there's no physical beings anymore. I wasn't physical and he was not present physical. He was like omnipresent, like everywhere and in one place at the same time holding me. And I basically took a moment to ask God for forgiveness, um to explain to him why I did what I did, why I made certain decisions and had certain moves in my life, to thank him for everything, and to just say that I don't feel worthy of your love anymore. That's the reason why I just don't want to, you know, because in the course of trying to protect this wonderful child that you blessed my life with, I've done things that I wish I hadn't done. I've been put in a position that I didn't even know how to navigate 100%. Um, I'm sorry. And God basically told me this, uh, which I apply in my life today. And I hope that anyone that listens to this testimony, you apply it to your life. Basically, what he told me was everything that you have done and everything that you will do, I already know. I have always known since I've created you, since before you were born. And I have loved you and I have given you life already with that forgiveness in place. I have already forgiven you for all of the things that you carry weight for in your heart. It is you, my daughter, that has to forgive yourself. Ooh. And I get emotional because, I recount this experience to myself in my mind. Sometimes when I exercise, when I go for walks, when I pray, when I go to have coffee and I just sit there and I admire the sky and the contrast of the branches of the tree with the leaves, with the colors of the sky. And I remember those words. And to me, it reminded me of the story of the woman that, from the Bible, she bled for 12 years. Um, she had forgotten what it was like to be a daughter of God. I was in a position where I had forgotten that I was still a daughter for God. That, even though what happened happened, he did not stop seeing me as his daughter. And that to me, to hear that in that encounter, it humbled me. It humbled me. And so after that, after hearing that, um, he starts to show me my life. I don't know if everybody has this experience when they pass on, but this was my experience. This is my testimony because I believe everybody has their own experience, their own relationship with that divine source, regardless of religion, regardless of how you were brought up. Each person has their own relationship with that spiritual all creation divine entity. So he starts to show me my life and he shows me my life um with moments that are like screenshots, you know? They're screenshot moments, like short clips, screenshots and clips. Some of them things that I didn't even think of anymore, but I remembered in my heart how special they were for me. And he took me through a trajectory. I struggle with that word. Trajectory where I experienced some of those events in those clips, not just as myself, but as the people that were involved in them. And uh, in some of them, I felt tremendous joy and happiness and great gratitude. And in some of them, I felt the other person's pain and I felt horrible. And in others, I felt the pain that I truly had was valid. It wasn't it wasn't it wasn't unimportant, And so then he proceeds to show me, you know, my life all the way till the end. But my ending has two options, Option one, ending today, and I got to see a glimpse of my loved ones and other scenarios that relied on me or that I would be present, that would be how they are going to be going forward. So he showed me that. Some of it, a lot of it actually was not good. It was not nice, especially for people that were close to me. And then he showed me the option if I choose to return. And in the option of choosing to return, there were situations in those visuals that he gave me that basically were fulfillments of things that I still had in my heart that I wanted for my life, but because of such a long decade of a legal journey related to my child, I felt like I wasn't worthy of that anymore. And I felt like all of that for me has gone, you know? Um, we may say anything right now because it's in retrospect, but at that time, with that mindset, because of that spiritual, uh, I call it a spiritual death in a way, the spirit was dying for me. I couldn't see how that would be possible for me anymore. So, okay, so he shows me the desires I have in my heart, what he's going to bless me with if I choose to come back. And in the meantime, there is this beautiful, like, portal of light. It was a small beam, and it starts to become a bigger, bigger, and bigger, and it becomes a portal, like a round circular opening, and I could see into it. And I could see silhouettes of bodies. I didn't see physical forms. There was one physical form that manifested in front that I could see, that I came to then recognize as like as that's probably Jesus because it was a male figure and I could see them and it, beautiful, uh, beautiful person, just beautiful, you know. And the place where they were at had the most beautiful colored flowers, like colors that you cannot even find them in the rainbow. You cannot even find them in the Amazon forest. You know, colors that artificial intelligence can't even put together. You know, it was a beautiful garden slash forest, and it was peaceful. It felt peaceful. As I am looking at it, I was mesmerized by the view. I am now distracted from the wall of my life that I was being shown. And I'm just thinking to myself, I'm home. You know, I want to go home. I know what you're showing me, God, but I want to go home. You know, I don't like what I experienced down there. I, I can't manage that anymore. I want just, this is good. And God asks me, what do you want me to do? And it prompted me to look at my life again. And at this point, I'm still thinking as I am looking to the portal on one side and I'm looking at visuals of my life on another. I'm just thinking, thank you for everything, but I want to go home. And then he asks me again, almost as if to say, make sure that you're sure. What do you want me to do? And then I'm prompted to look at the visual. I'm sorry. When I get emotional, I have a super runny nose. I take after my dad. It runs in the family. So now I'm prompted to look at you know the fork in the road. If I choose to go home now, to continue on to the path where he's taking me, um, look at what's going to happen to people you love, especially the one person you've tried so hard to protect. Your child. And then he showed me the other version of me, coming back and choosing to continue this physical life experience. And I hear my daughter. Now I hear my daughter as if she's in the ocean, like far away, uh, or as if I'm in the ocean and she's like above the shore. I hear her call me, "Mommy, mommy, wake up." And the moment I hear her voice, she always has the cutest voice. I've always loved hearing her voice. It's just the cutest thing. It just makes me feel like just joy of life for me. Just it's a piece of my joy. And I hear her little voice. And that moment I said, God, I got to go back and finish raising that kid. The moment I said that to him, I blink, I wake up, I'm in the car. When I'm in the car and I wake up, uh, my eyes look everywhere. I cannot believe that I'm back there, but I also trying to process what I just experienced wherever it was that I came from. And at the same time, I gasped for air so deeply and so strongly. My daughter got emotional when she saw me wake up and she started kissing my face. And in that instance, and I know this happened because my daughter was in the car and she in part also saw this. Some woman had just popped up like out of nowhere. We don't even know where she popped up. I say from in the front of the car, from the ground. I don't know. No one knows. People that were at this accident, it was a huge accident, big intersection. It was rush hour time because it was between the time of people leaving work and going home. So the paramedics were struggling to get to the site. There was a good almost 20 minute almost 20-minute difference between the time on the clock of the car and my cell phone by the time I got out of that car. And some of that 20 minutes, I was not alive. Let's just put it that way. But now I'm in the car, and this woman just pops up out of nowhere, and she gets to the back seat, passenger side, calms my daughter down, and just asks her to trust that everything's going to be okay. You know, asks her if she trusts or believes in God, and my daughter says yes. And she says, Mommy's going to be okay. Let's just get your stuff. I'm thinking as I'm in the driver's seat, like, I don't have my bodily capabilities. I can't even move to protect her or to make sure that no one just walks away with her? She's like 7 years old at this time. 7? Yeah, 7, about 7 or 8. Um, this woman then crawls from the passenger side towards the driver's side. And she assesses the situation. She analyzes my body. She starts touching me. She sees the wreckage on top of my leg. I can't feel anything. Below my eyeballs, I cannot feel anything. My neck cracked. I felt like I was paralyzed. I'm looking at her and I'm trying to talk. I also can't talk. I think I also was in shock. But I am with my thoughts saying, like thinking stuff, trying to say stuff. She telepathically communicates with me. She looks me dead in the eyes and she tells me, trust me, you're going to get out of here and you are going to walk. And I'm looking at her and I'm thinking, I'm thinking of everything I just experienced. I'm thinking of what this looks like. I'm thinking of what God shows me. God showed me someone going forward that is not paralyzed, does not lose a limb, can still is still the same person they were before. Like what I saw and what I'm seeing, like what God showed me and what this is are two different things. But the physical world has me believing right now that I'm paralyzed. That's it. I'm not going to make it out of this car. I'm not going to be able to walk ever again. I'm not going to have a left leg because it was crushed and I couldn't feel anything. I couldn't even feel physical pain. And I knew the leg was crushed because I could see it crushed by the door and the front of the SUV that was on top of my left leg, like from this point all the way down. Okay, so she's assessing my body. You know, she positions my head towards the seat, the headrest, the driver headrest. I see this woman take both of her hands and lift the wreckage off of my leg. I see this. And I know that you're hearing this from me and it sounds crazy, but I also know people that have had these experiences will be able to understand this is possible. I see this woman lift the car wreckage off of my leg. And at this point, I could see my leg. My leg was a pancake. Um, the kneecap bone was like partially sticking out. The femur was not in place at the kneecap. As a matter of fact, there was a bone that was protruding out of my jeans and there was blood. And I just was, it looked like my leg was gone because it was crushed like a pancake. The femur and the kneecap were completely dislodged and sticking out of the jeans, and it was bloody. This woman uh, takes hold of my left leg from my hip all the way down to my foot. As she's taking hold of my left leg with both of her hands, and she is just moving it along slowly, carefully, not applying pressure. I just remember she's just moving it. It was as if somebody was blowing air back into my body. As she was moving along my leg, it was transforming from pancake and broken to healed and like nothing ever happened. And she's moving down. As she moves down, I could see her putting my femur and my kneecap in place, all the way down my calf, all the way down my ankle to my foot. And I am seeing this still unable to move, you know, because my neck cracked. But at this point, I start to get emotional because that's that was a miraculous event, you know? So I see this. My daughter is standing outside of the car. She can't really see super well into the car because the woman is crouched over me, but she could definitely see that I'm no longer crushed under the SUV. And I do remember as she, was assessing me, she's like, "We have to get out of here. It's going to catch on fire." She spoke with a British accent. As a matter of fact, she's like, "We need to get out of here. It's going to catch on fire." And it was, the front of the SUV was smoking up. I'm looking at her and I'm thinking, I cannot move. I know you just did what you did with my leg, but I can't move. She continues to look at me again in the eye and she says, "Trust me. You are going to get out of here and walk." This was the second time she said it to me. Now she assesses my neck, my head, my neck. She touches me. Um she puts left and right hand on each side of my neck. She doesn't apply pressure, but again, I can't feel it because I can't feel anything. But I know she's not squeezing because she's just keeping it in one, I could see that she's just holding it in place. And she's looking at me in the face. And now all of a sudden, I'm like, okay, I still don't feel anything. Um, I just feel you looking at me. She then takes her right hand. She takes her right hand, and this is the third time she says this to me. And this is where now in retrospect, when I recount this to myself and I remember this event, and I do remember it daily. This is an event, this is an experience that became tattooed in my mind. And this is the reason of my gratitude every day. Regardless of the circumstances I might be in or that life puts me in, because just because you go through a moment of salvation doesn't mean that you won't have moments of temptation or difficulty again. Like, it still happens. But anyway, she says this the third time, you know. Um she looks at me now as she's about to take her right hand and put it on my chest. And she says again the third time, she says, "You're going to get out of this car and you're going to walk." And she presses her right hand on my chest. When she presses her hand on my chest, she presses downward as if you are pressing like a button. I mean, if I were to compare it to something, it would be like when people are on a game show and they press the buzzer because they really don't want to miss their chance. they don't want to miss the right to, they're the ones that have the right to give the answer. So they press hard. That's what she did to me. I felt like I was being electrocuted, you know? I felt like I was being electrocuted by a million light bulbs. My 37.2 trillion cells, because that's the average cells we have in our body. I know this because I'm a scientist. But I literally felt all of them getting electrocuted. It was as if I came to life physically. My spirit was back in my body, but my body wasn't awake. My body was still dead. And now it was alive. Sorry, I got to get some water. Okay. When she does this, when she ends this process, and I look at her, and I could feel my body, I could feel my lashes, I could feel every hair on my body sticking up, I could feel my toes, I could feel my right and my left leg, when you're sitting down and you kind of, I could move them, you know? She then helps me crawl to the driver's side, positions my right and left foot on the asphalt, and as she's standing in front of me from the driver's side, I mean, from the passenger side, she makes me because the driver's side got impacted, so she makes me crawl out of the passenger side. And when we get out of the passenger side, and she puts my left and right leg on the asphalt, she's standing in front of me and says, "Get up and walk." I'm thinking, I'm nervous. I'm not gonna. I was not about to say to her, "No, I can't." I wasn't gonna do that because I know what I just experienced. I was still processing what I experienced. Um, Spiritually, where I went and where I was taken to. So I was not at that moment, after having that experience of having the knowledge that I was forgiven and that I am loved like a daughter of God. I was not about to say no, it's not possible. Because I just had an experience that's also, to me, was like, no, that's not possible, and it did happen. So she says, "Get up and walk." At this point, I think, she senses that I'm a little bit nervous. So she positions herself kind of to the side, and she helps to anchor me. She anchors my body a little bit so I can stand up from the seat. So I stand up with her, and my body is shaking, but my legs are not. Like, my body is shaking, my upper body is shaking because I'm emotional, but my legs are not. I get up and I could feel both my left and my right leg as if nothing was wrong with them. I I I became so joyful and so grateful because at this point I see that my daughter is okay. She's standing right there with a little backpack, and she was fine, and she was so happy that I was fine. She gave me a hug, and then the lady grabbed onto her hand and said, "I'm going to walk you guys to the sidewalk. So let's go." As we're walking, I am tearing up, and I'm smiling out of joy that I'm starting to notice that nobody was hurt. Nobody was severely injured. Nobody nobody died. The other driver was a drunk driver. They ran a red light at almost over 60 miles an hour. They were drunk. They did hurt their wrist, but that's about it. They were also texting while they were driving. There were people that were stopped at the accident that saw this lady that helped my daughter and I out of the car. There was another lady waiting for us at the sidewalk. She was also dressed in white. She also had the same blue, it was like bluish green eye color. They both had the same eye color. The lady that got me out of the car was like a glowing white and blonde hair with like bluish green turquoise colored kind of eyes. The lady that was waiting for us on the sidewalk, she was a beautiful, like, chocolate color with the most beautiful braids I've ever seen, super long. The most beautiful doll face, also with the same blue, green, turquoise colored eyes. She was sitting there. She welcomed my daughter to sit down. My daughter sat down next to her. I was still trying to process the shock of everything. I sat down also. The lady that took me out of the car sat me down. There were people who were at the accident site screaming. They were yelling at the other driver that they were texting. They have, images or video or whatever of them like careening through the red light and crushing into me and practically killing me. Um, with this commotion now, finally the paramedics get there. The paramedics get there and they rush to the people that are at the site because they go in the car and they don't find anybody. They rush the people that were at the site that were there asking, what happened? Where's the people from the car? Like the paramedics were surprised that no one was in the car and they were looking for it. They're like, "Where's the driver? Where's the people? Like who was in this car?" And I remember there was this big buff Italian guy. He sounded like he was from New York. Um he pointed the paramedics in the direction where we were sitting on the sidewalk. And then the paramedics came to talk to me and my daughter and they were asking us who was the driver, where's the driver? Like who was driving this car? And my daughter, smart as a little button. I mean, cute as a button, but smart as a button. Like I know that sounds weird, but she's just like the most amazing blessing I could have ever been given. She says to the paramedic, "My mommy was the driver. It was my mommy." And she points at me, and I was sitting right next to her. I look at the paramedic, and I just do like yes. I nod yes with my head. And he asks me again, "You're the driver. You were the driver of that car?" And I finally, I think I utter the words yes to him. And the other paramedic that was with him comes from the ambulance that rushes over. They start to look at me. They start to assess me, and they check. I could see that they're looking at my body, and you know, there was a third person in the ambulance that goes to double check the car, and I just remember them coming back and mumbling to themselves, "How is that possible? Like the SUV crushed the driver's side. Like how did you make it out?" Then when they're asking how did you make it out, again this big buff Italian guy is still there because he's the one that called the police because he was frustrated, aggravated, annoyed that this person just ran a red light while on their phone texting and crushed a person that had a child in their car. Like he just was not having it. So he said, this guy started telling the paramedics, "Oh yeah, this lady went in there and helped them out and whatever." Other people in the accident scene are now telling the paramedics also, "Yeah, the lady, she was here. She sat them down." They start looking for the lady. Um, I tell my daughter to ask the woman that's sitting next to her to tell them where the lady is. When we go to look for these two ladies, both of them were gone. Like you cannot find them. They were both gone. They disappeared. Nobody in that crowd could point out where they went. Now, I was taken to the hospital. My dad came to the accident scene because my cell phone, my daughter, I had her call my dad. The accident scene was like 5 minutes away from where my dad was living. I was actually driving to their house. Um, so my dad came, the paramedics assessed my child. They realized that she's okay. Like, you can bring her back to the doctor tomorrow. We need to take mom immediately because she was crushed and if her head banged, concussion and if she goes to sleep or if she passes out, that's the problem. So they took me immediately to the hospital. They did x-rays, they did all this testing that they do, all this assessment that they do on you. They realized that I did have a cracked neck bone but that it appeared to be healed. And the healing appeared to exist for almost 10 years or a little bit more than 10 years. They could notice the ridge on the bone as if it had been broken before, but now it was healed. Because whenever you break a bone and it heals, it does leave it does leave a mark. And I explained to the doctor, no, I've never this is the accident happened today. They checked my leg, the same thing. There were like certain marks on the bone in certain places that show that it was broken before. Are you sure you never injured this before? Were you ever in a cast? No. I had the accident today, you know. Um, but I have full mobility of my leg. I don't have pain. Um, I was in the hospital. It was almost going to be an overnight experience, but they finally finalized all the tests and realized I was okay. And they confirmed if I was going to be off of work because they recommended bed rest. Um, I was starting spring break from work at that time, so I had a week off of work. I was able to have a week of bed rest to recover from the physical impact. I started physical therapy. I needed a lot of physical therapy. I also needed some speech therapy because the impact to my head resulted with me having a stutter. Then I had a sensitivity to light for some time as a result of where my head got crushed with crushed the glass. Eventually, I I want to say that I healed. You know, um, eventually those things that resulted from the accident started to go away. The only thing that stayed are the marks on the bones as evidence of something was broken and it was healed, and the memory of this entire experience. Uh, that week of bed rest, I enjoyed time with my daughter, quality time. I enjoyed quality time with my family. I had a new way of breathing oxygen. It felt like I just wanted to savor everything slowly, calmly. Oxygen has a taste for me. It is beautiful. Colors have value for me. People um, have meaning for me. Um, Experience with a friend, a conversation, um, being able to help another person, um, being in a position to being a blessing to someone. All of that became so evident to me and so important to me. And I became so grateful to have a second chance. And that gratitude came from the forgiveness that I finally gave myself. I forgave myself for a lot of things that I thought I didn't deserve forgiveness for, but I felt in my heart that if God forgave me for all of this and He still loves me to the point of calling me His daughter, I need to forgive myself also. I was spiritually born again, and my life became more beautiful than ever. It didn't matter anymore being right. I didn't care anymore about having to have the last word, having to be right, having to be the best, having to achieve certain things in order to be like everyone else. As a matter of fact, even when it came to like professional achievements or like success in terms of like what do you do for a living, that didn't matter to me either anymore. What mattered to me now was who am I while I'm living? What am I doing while I'm living? Not what do I do for a living? Not what do I wear while I'm living? Not what do I show up? None of that mattered anymore. My ego, it's as if my ego stopped existing. I was able to backtrack a lot of relationships and apologize for things that I did. And in those experiences of apologizing to those people, they felt redeemed. And at the same time, they were able to also ask me for forgiveness. So I did have some of those beautiful unconditional moments with people from my past that I felt like whether I was right or wrong doesn't even matter anymore. I know that I also play a role in hurting others. You cannot want in life to be validated for how others make you feel and never validate anyone for how you make them feel. So that was my learning also, you know? And what I realized is that forgiveness is more than just a road to salvation. It's also a road to redemption, and it's a road to a renewed covenant with what created you, what placed you here, you know? Um, I also came back and started a life knowing how to practice unconditional love. It's not easy to practice because here in the physical world, we have conditions for how we love. We have expectations for when we give. We are transactional because we want something in return. But I believe that when you have an experience like this, and now I don't just believe it, I actually live it, you no longer walk the same way. You don't walk your physical life the same way. You don't see things the same way anymore. You see them better. You appreciate them for the simple, for the little things, because the little things matter. You also stop being petty. You can't be a petty person, you know? I also found a renewed love for my career. I realized that God has a purpose for placing me in the position he's placed me in. And I'm grateful that he entrusted me with that, you know? I always wanted growing up, I wanted to be a pediatric heart surgeon. I don't think it was because I wanted necessarily to heal hearts or make hearts of children better in terms of like the physical surgery. I believe that that was my innocent child mentality of wanting to heal children's hearts, wanting to access their hearts and being able to make that better for them or enlighten that for them, enlighten their heart to ease their life. Lo and behold, um, I'm a, I'm a, I'm a teacher. I work with kids every day. I work with their hearts because teaching is more than just being a person that presents curriculum and academics. Teaching is definitely a way into a child's heart if you allow it, if you take advantage of it for that, you know. Um, so I came back with a renewed love for my career. I came back with a renewed love for people that I work with, for friends. Um, a different way of even loving my child, being more patient, even though in the physical at times being impatient is the default. But at least now I can remind myself why it's worth to be patient. And that's my testimony. So if you're sitting in life and you're contemplating your worthiness, I want you to understand that there is nothing you have done or that you can do that can take the love of God from you. That self forgiveness is more important than you might give credit for. You need to forgive yourself for whatever it is that you still carry in your heart that you think was the worst that you've ever done. You need to seek help. Like I said, after my accident, I had a variety of therapies um, in order to get back to myself. Um, the situation with my daughter and legalities, I all got better because I be, I made the choice. I became better. Not I made the choice, I guess, because I was awakened to what mattered, you know? I was awakened to what mattered. I knew how to communicate better also. Um, Forgiveness is a road to salvation and redemption and renewed covenant. But in order to get it, you have to give it to yourself. You have to forgive yourself. It's a process, it takes time, but it's definitely worth it. And my testimony also serves the purpose, at least for me, to understand that unconditional love is actually easier than people think. It's easier to practice. It doesn't rely on conditions, it doesn't rely on keeping a list, it doesn't rely on keeping tabs. It just relies on your desire to love because that's the choice you make. Whether you're treated nice or not, it doesn't matter because that treatment is a reflection of how that person feels about themselves and their life. That treatment has nothing to do with who you are. You can still choose to love. You can still choose to forgive. You can choose to let go. You don't have to tolerate because you love and you forgive. Love and forgiveness does not mean unconditional tolerance, you know? You can love, you can forgive, but they don't have to sit at your table anymore, and that's okay. So my experience helped me understand that. Um, and just being grateful, you know? I am pretty sure that for everything that goes on in life, every single person has things that are grateful for. They're just not noticing it, you know? Grateful for how you feel when you get up in the morning. You have to tell yourself how you want to feel. Never allow your feelings to control you or to rule you. Be grateful that you can master your mind. You can master your thoughts. You're the captain of the ship that's in your mind. So there was so much that was given to me that I didn't really share in this testimony because it would be too much. But the experience in terms of the self forgiveness, I believe, was the most important. I needed to feel that in my spirit. And God gave me that opportunity before I got home and did something to myself. He stopped the course of events and told me that's not how we do things. And He gave me an eye opening experience for me to understand what matters and why your life has value. Because in the course of seeing snapshots of your life, you also realize how wonderful you make other people feel, how other people love you. They just maybe don't say it, maybe don't express it, but in the world that you walk in, for the people that you interact with, all of them are grateful you're there, even if that's not what it seems like, you know? Um, that was my experience. I hope that in some way this testimony was helpful. Um, I relive it daily. I've written it down. One day I'm gonna put this together as a book because there's more depth to the story or to the testimony to share. It'll probably be a great experience to have it published as a book so that it's something that my daughter can carry on even when I'm not here. And for me, it's given me the opportunity to be a beam of light for anyone that needs a testimony like this in order to understand life is worth going on with. Life is beautiful. And if you're finding it difficult, you're going to overcome this and it's going to be okay. Because in the end, what you are analyzing as what's making your life difficult, it's not really what matters. It's how you love, it's how you forgive, and it's how you share. That's what matters. And all of those you can choose to do. So when you choose to do them unconditionally. Do them because you can and you want to. And I promise you, you are always going to feel love and light in your heart when you do so. Anyway, thanks for being here. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. I hope you love this testimony. If you want to leave comments, good or bad, it all works for the good. And yeah, I love you guys. I love you for watching. I love you for being a part of this. Um, I love you for subscribing, and let's continue to grow this more. Give me ideas for topics. I have some amazing interviews coming up uh, with some more people. It's going to be all facets. So we got more to come and more to share together. But in the meantime, I love you. You're worth it. And no matter where you walk, just remember, you're amazing.